Ethan Walker stared into the roaring blaze, each spark dancing like restless fireflies, while outside the storm's shriek rattled every beam of his lonely cabin. His thick fingers curled around a steaming mug, the warmth a rare comfort after days of swirling white fury. He once thrived on adrenaline, the tangled ropes of rescue missions, the frantic calls, but now nothing pulsed through him except this unbroken silence. For 3 days the storm had cut him off from the world, burying the world in endless drift. The door groaned as wind thrust its icy fingers through cracks, and the only answers came in the pop and sigh of burning logs, until a new sound sliced through the hush, a scratch. Claws rasped against wood, a hesitant plea lost beneath the gale. Ethan set down his coffee, pulse quickening as a low bark pulsed through the turbulent night. A chill crept up his spine. No storm could summon such urgency. He rose, muscles tensing, and pressed an ear to the door. Again, scratch, bark, a fragile rhythm demanding attention. What creature braved this fury? He wondered, heart thudding against frozen ribs. With a grunt, Ethan drew the bolt and cracked the door just enough for a cascade of biting wind to whip inside, stinging raw skin. Yet his gaze found something far more alarming. A German shepherd, its coat plastered with ice, eyes glowing golden with desperation. Around its neck swung a worn collar etched with the remnants of a canine insignia. The dog's bark pierced the storm's roar, then it pressed a frosty muzzle to Ethan's leg, only to pivot again toward the swirling white abyss, urging him onward. Ethan swallowed hard, breath ragged in the frigid blast. He grabbed his heavy coat, flicked on a flashlight, and checked his pistol. "All right," he muttered, sealing the cabin behind him. The German shepherd bolted into the storm like a living arrow, and Ethan followed, each footfall swallowed by drifts as tall as his knees. He stumbled forward into the tempest, mind racing. Where is he taking me? Every gust flung snow like jagged knives, forcing Ethan to lean into the wind, eyes watering. Still, Shadow, the dog, pressed on, ears pinned back yet alert, glancing over his shoulder with a sharp bark to keep Ethan close. The world had become white noise, each step an effort against the pull of freezing weight. Ethan's breath came in clouds, numbness crept into legs that felt lifetimes away, but hope propelled him onward, chasing the silhouette of fur through the blinding haze. Suddenly Shadow halted. Ethan crashed to his knees as if the snow beneath him opened like jaws. Before them yawned a hidden chasm, its dark throat vanishing into the depths. A frigid dread slithered up Ethan's spine. One misstep would mean oblivion. Shadow pivoted left and trotted forward, seeking firmer ground. Ethan exhaled, cautious steps tracing the dog's path as the storm's roar pressed close, determined to swallow them whole. After what felt like hours, a shape emerged. A car, its frame half swallowed by drifts, headlights gone. Shadow bounded ahead, barking with fierce urgency. Ethan hurried to the passenger window, heart twisting at the sight of a woman curled inside, one hand pressed to her swollen belly, pale as winter's moon. Shadow pawed frantically against glass, his eyes wide with worry. Ethan's voice broke as he rapped the window. "Can you hear me?" Emily's lids flickered open at the sound of her saviour, and Shadow's familiar face, raising a faint, hopeful smile, but relief fell away when Ethan yanked at the frozen door. Ice held it fast, mocking his strength. Inside, Emily's breaths grew shallow, pain etching her features with each wave. Shadow's barks rose to a frantic crescendo as Ethan drew a knife blade, chipping ice from the frame. With a final tug, metal groaned and the door sprang open, unleashing a blast of cold that stole Ethan's breath, but not his resolve. He slid inside and knelt beside her. "I've got you," he said, sliding his coat around her shoulders. When she tried to sit, her cry of agony confirmed what he already feared. She couldn't stand. There was no time. Ethan tightened his arms around Emily's trembling form and lifted. The storm seized his muscles, threatening to drag him under with every step. Shadow darted ahead, sniffing for safety, then paused to check Ethan was still upright. "Almost there," Ethan hissed, legs burning with the weight of a life in his arms. Emily's whispered confession, "It hurts," cut through the wind's howl. He pressed on, driven by the promise of the cabin's warm glow. Then came the crack. A towering branch, heavy with snow, split and barreled toward them. Ethan froze too late. With a force born of loyalty, Shadow hurled himself atop Ethan and Emily, propelling them aside. The branch smashed down, thunder in the silent woods. Ethan scrambled up, heart hammering. Shadow lay curled beneath the fallen timber, one shoulder stained red. Pain flickered in his eyes, but with a whimper he pushed himself upright and limped on, refusing to stay down. Ethan's throat tightened. No partner, no surrender. At last, the cabin's lantern light shimmered through the flurries like a beacon of salvation. Ethan kicked the door open and carried Emily inside, laying her gently before the roaring hearth. Shadow collapsed beside her, muzzle resting on her knee. Ethan stoked the stove-boiled water, wrapped blankets tight. Contractions beat faster now. Emily's sweat-slick forehead glowed in the firelight. Breathed and coached, every word steady, even as his own legs trembled. Shadow whimpered low, offering silent comfort. Time slowed, measured in gasps and murmured prayers. Then a single newborn cry split the fierce quiet boy. Ethan wrapped him in a towel and placed him in Emily's arms. Tears traced her cheeks, wonder and pain mingling in her gaze. No respite came, another wave surged sharper still. Seconds later, a second cry answered the first. Shadow's tail thumped weakly, relief shining in his eyes as he watched the tiny brothers nestle against their mother's warmth. Dawn arrived soft and pale, dusting trees with frost. Ethan sipped coffee, eyes never straying from the fire where Emily and the twins slept. Shadow lay nearby, side heaving with shallow breaths, fur matted with dried blood. Suddenly, tires creaked through the snow. Shadow jolted upright, ears pricking. Ethan peered out to see an off-road vehicle edging closer. The door burst open and Daniel stumbled out, eyes frantic. "Emily," he cried, voice raw. Shadow barked, a bark of recognition, and Daniel froze, disbelief washing over him as he locked onto the loyal dog inside. Daniel fell to his knees before Emily and her newborn sons, tears flooding his expression. "I was so afraid," he whispered, gripping her hand. Ethan stepped back, giving the family space. Daniel's gaze drifted to Shadow's wounded shoulder. Without hesitation, he reached out, fingertips brushing gentle over fur. "You saved us," he murmured. Shadow's tail gave a faint wag. Daniel wrapped his arms around him. "He always has," came Daniel's soft admission. Shadow relaxed for the first time in days. A week later, spring's promise teased through melting snow. Daniel's car stood at the driveway's edge, engine idling. Emily cradled the twins in her arms as she stepped out, joined by Daniel. Shoulder still bandaged, wagged fiercely despite the ache in his muscles. Daniel clasped Ethan's hand in a silent, firm handshake. "A thank you," he said, gratitude warm as sunshine. Ethan nodded, eyes drifting to Shadow. "He's a fighter." Emily smiled, newborns cooing against her chest. As they prepared to leave, Daniel grinned, voice bright. "One of the boys will be named Ethan." Ethan's weathered face broke into a rare smile. Shadow padded over to Ethan, pressing his head into the old man's palm one last time. Ethan knelt, scratching behind Shadow's ears. "You did good, buddy," he whispered. As the car melted into the white horizon, Shadow turned back, eyes glinting with peace and longing. Ethan watched until the last taillight vanished into the drift. In that silent moment, he realized the storm had stripped away more than communication and warmth. It had returned him to his purpose, rescue, hope, and the promise of a new beginning.